Jake Guentzel wins it in overtime on the doorstep on a pass from John Marino. A little too thrilling at the finish for the Penguins, but they do win it in overtime. They concede a point to the Capitals, so they don't go into first place by themselves, and they don't slip 1 point ahead of the Caps with 5 games to play in that return matchup in Washington coming up on Saturday. But at the same point, they do get the 2 points, and those 2 points propel them on to the Stanley Cup playoffs for the 15th consecutive season. If you followed the Penguins for any stretch of time, you know that is a franchise record. And even though that outcome has not been in doubt for many weeks now since the Penguins turned it on and found their footing, especially in the month of March, here we are in late April, and we're talking about the Penguins once again getting a chance to play for a championship. And despite squandering a late lead and despite it being Tom Wilson who put the puck in the net, that still is cause to celebrate. This is Pittsburgh Postgame on Pittsburgh Sports Live. I'm Matt Gajtka. Another solo show. I was really happy with the turnout and the response to the solo show I did on Saturday after the 1-0 win over the Bruins. Pardon me, that was Sunday, actually, Sunday afternoon. So we're doing another one here. And who needs guests, right? When we can just talk about this one. And obviously we'll see what you had to say about tonight's game. Kasperi Kapanen had an outstanding game. He's my number one star. Again, a game breaker, a difference maker, and a guy who's proving to be better in Pittsburgh, a better fit in Pittsburgh, at least so far, than he was in Toronto with the Maple Leafs. Coming back to the team that drafted him, and you do have to tip your cap to Jim Rutherford, the departed GM, who brought him back in. I think a lot of us were split on that decision to do so, but at the same time, we knew that he had the ability, and he has all the raw tools, and he appears to be putting them together more and more. His short side goal on Vitek Vanacek, the Capitals netminder, late in the third period, had the Penguins ahead 4-3, and it was his second goal of the game. Also, Zach Aston Reese set a new career high with his goal in the shortened season. So even though he's been progressing in fits and starts, I would say, and the acquisition of Jeff Carter certainly disrupts the line chemistry that he had with Teddy Bluger and Brandon Tanev. His injury, too, more to the point, that has broken up what was looking like one of the better checking lines in hockey, but still Aston Reese is chugging along and showing some of that offensive upside as well. And Tristan Jarry, let's not forget him too. He gives up 4 goals, but a win on the road where they've been hard to come by for him this season. And the Capitals threatened to go ahead by a couple of goals in the second period, especially there. They could have pulled away, and Jarry made those so cliched, but sometimes true, timely saves. Let's look at some of the comments already. We have Steelers comments. Yes, the draft is going on too. But DMX Gamer, go over to the other live feed with Mike Osti and Alan Saunders and Nick Farabaugh. They're all going to be commenting on the draft pick coming up here later on this evening. Jamie Komet, one of our more frequent and more loyal viewers, touches upon the elephant in the room too. 2 missed empty net goals led to a free Capitals point here. And Chris Letang, who made the defensive mistake on the Tom Wilson goal, he was actually shooting for the empty net. I can't take anything away from him on going for the goal from behind the icing line, even though it led to an offensive zone draw for the Caps after that. I don't mind going for the empty net if you have a semi-clear look at it. Letang did, but who didn't go for the empty net, as you know if you watch the final couple of minutes, was Brian Rust. He was trying to hook up with Jake Guentzel, who didn't really have a step on the Capitals defender, but Rust forced the pass instead of just skating it into the offensive zone, and probably would have been an easy finish from there. So I think Rust has to wear it a bit too. Like I said, 2 points for the Penguins, but they're not as good of 2 points, not as effective of 2 points as it would have been if they didn't give the Capitals anything. And in this season of exclusively divisional matchups, those regulation results are more important than ever. This is not some cross-conference matchup with the Edmonton Oilers in mid-January in a typical 82-game season. It doesn't really feel like a full 2 points. It feels more like 1.5, even though the math is still the same from the winner's perspective here. And like I said, the Penguins are going back to the postseason, and they are tied with the Capitals, albeit the Caps with a game in hand at the top of the East Division standings. Gaming with Gio. Good to see you again, my friend. Pens should not have let up that goal in the last 14 seconds. Yes, it was a horrible defensive breakdown. For some reason, Letang decided to try to defend the backside of the net instead of the front side of the net. And you don't have to be a hockey genius or Scotty Bowman or Mike Sullivan or anyone really who has coached a minute in this league to know that the front of the net's more dangerous than the back of the net. And you could tell Letang was frustrated, but doesn't take away the mistake that he made. And those mistakes continue to crop up for him in unfortunate situations and circumstances. Yes, a positive on the whole, Chris Letang is for the Penguins, but those egregious mistakes do continue to pop up. And in this case, it cost them a chance to get an edge for that top spot and home ice throughout the first 2 rounds of the playoffs. Still 5 games to go. The Penguins could still beat the Capitals in regulation on Saturday and take a 2-point lead over them. But I hope they don't rue this one and the way it ended, despite the overtime victory. This is Pittsburgh Postgame on Pittsburgh Sports Live. Plenty to talk about tonight, and I was going to lead with Kasperi Kapanen, so why not do that right now? Because Jay Fresh Hockey on Twitter commented that he thinks every goal that Kapanen has scored this season has been off the rush. Kapanen now has 10, despite missing a considerable portion of time due to a lower body, a foot injury that he's just recently come back from. But boy, has he come back from it. And if it was a foot, a hairline fracture or something like that, a deep bone bruise, it doesn't look like it because he has every bit of that speed that he has been known for ever since the Penguins were scouting him before they drafted him back in 2014. He scores 2 rush goals tonight. The second one, an absolute beauty, taking the puck off the right wing boards and snapping it home off the inside of the right post. It appeared under the crossbar against Vitek Vanacek. So when I talk about he has all the tools, I got some pushback from Stephen Birch and a couple of Leafs fans in particular who said, yeah, hockey IQ was always a sticking point for him, but there's no rule against a player getting smarter and getting more savvy. And also, I think his role is just simpler here in Pittsburgh. And I know he's not playing with Malkin or Crosby right now. He's playing with Jeff Carter, but still a quality center, it appears, even at this late stage of his career. And Kapanen's able to fly the zone, the first one down the ice, stretching the D, making the opponent worry about him and aiding the breakout in that way, even if he doesn't take a breakaway pass. But he gets, I guess the first goal, I don't know if I'd call that off the rush, but a turnover, a lightning quick strike from Kapanen. It has seemed like all of his goals this season, even if that's not the case, have been in a flash. And it seems fitting for a guy who can move like he can, who can shoot it like he can too. We often talk about the feet, but the hands are just as quick. Maybe not a pristine stick handler in every way, more of a direct type of a player. And it's working, though. He can really shoot it. He can really rip it. And whether we're talking about a snapshot, wrist shot, slap shot, he's getting a lot on these shots. And also, he seems to be reading goalies well. He's gone through the 5-hole on a couple of breakaways after a big slap shot fake. And tonight, just seeing a little bit of room over Vanacek's shoulder. It's been an impressive first season in Pittsburgh for Kapanen. No two ways about it. I mentioned Zach Aston-Reese. I mentioned also Brian Rust with a chance late to ice it, but couldn't get it done. The top line doesn't do much for the Penguins tonight, but the depth comes through. Frederick Gaudreau, in his return to the lineup, just like Kasperi Kapanen, he makes an instant impact. I'm not sure I would have thought that was going to be the case coming into the season, but Gaudreau replaces Mark Jankowski, and the impact is felt immediately. Not that you can expect a goal every night from Gaudreau, but he gives you a chance at least something productive in the offensive zone every night. Jankowski, a very limited player, whether it be on the penalty kill or at even strength. Gaudreau, certainly with more to bring to the table. So glad to see him back, and don't underestimate the impact of him. And as we've talked about on previous editions of Pittsburgh Postgame, players continue to come back from injury. We're still waiting on Malkin, of course, but he is now participating fully in practice with the team. And we'll see about Brandon Tanev. He's important too. But just getting Malkin back, obviously, would be a huge deal to slot him into that second line center role, put Jeff Carter on the third line, Teddy Bluger centers the fourth line, and the Penguins are looking pretty good. They already have been looking pretty good when you talk about just pure results, wins, losses, and overtime losses. There's no one better than them since the midway point of February, and that continued tonight, despite giving up the point to the Capitals. Kind of a strange one at the start. It had a strange feel. I don't want to say the Pens and the Caps were playing out the string at the top of the game, but at the same time, not the same level of intensity. Of course, only a couple thousand fans in the stands. I suppose we should be grateful for that limited amount of atmosphere, but also the first time in 2 months that they played. It's been a while. The Penguins were nowhere near on this same level of roll the last time we saw the Pens and Caps lock up. And this was the first ever game in Alex Ovechkin's career, first ever game against the Penguins that he has missed. 16 seasons, and Ovechkin has missed a couple of games due to injury. That's just weird overall because he's only missed, I want to say this was his 34th or 35th career missed game in 16 seasons. Compare that to his contemporary Sidney Crosby, and it's quite the disparity. Sid's lost a couple of seasons due to injury, and Ovechkin not even a half season because of health. But without seeing number 8 on the wing, I know he's not quite the dominant force that he was, but he still scores goals. He's still a guy you have to worry about on the power play. It was weird that first Capitals power play, they win the faceoff over to the left side, and it's not number 8 over there. It's Tom Wilson who gets the first touch, and that was definitely different. And I think it took a little edge off the series. Of course, the Penguins still missing Malkin, or a little edge off the matchup, I should say, as they play this 2-game set in Washington. So I think the game struggled for intensity at first, but as the two teams warmed to the task here, as it remained close deep into the third period, then we saw some of that drama pick up, and it really started to boil over midway through that second period. Justin Schultz, the former Penguin, continues to show that ability, a great ability, to get shots through traffic. And that was a shot pass to former Penguin Daniel Sprong for the go-ahead goal for Washington late in the second period. But still, Schultz gets the shots through with authority. His first period shot on the power play was deflected by TJ Oshie. And in that case, just getting it around the net on the pass to Sprong and allowing something good to happen. You don't have to get these shots on the net, but just get them through. Don't get them blocked. And I think that gets lost when you talk about defensemen and their skills on the blue line. I always appreciated that about Schultz when he was in Pittsburgh. Yeah, sometimes you try to pick the top corner because he's a skilled player, and well, he's been doing that since he was a little kid, and since he was one of the more highly sought-after college free agents. Remember the Justin Schultz sweepstakes won by the Oilers, rejuvenated his career with the Penguins, of course, and got a nice deal with the Capitals. Happy for him there, but not happy to see him, of course, contribute directly to a couple of Capitals goals. So don't forget about the Justin Schultz effect in Washington. And they brought in Zdeno Chara, they brought in Justin Schultz. It's a revamped blue line. No, Matt Niskanen certainly hurts. He was reliable and physical in front of the net, as we all know from his time in Pittsburgh and also his time playing against the Penguins. Well, probably Niskanen moved on to Philadelphia, but it's a different type of Capitals team. They had Anthony Mantha at the trade deadline. He didn't do a lot until overtime. Jari stopped him on a rush chance there. Mantha began the game, though, with Oshie and Backstrom. I was eager to see the dynamic there because I've been a fan of Mantha for a while. And he, I think, showed what he could do in Detroit, but now he gets a chance with some real teammate support and some depth around him. And I think if the Caps make a run, I wouldn't be surprised to see Mantha go off and start popping some pucks into the net. This is Pittsburgh Postgame, and the comments continue to roll in from DMX Gamer. I don't think he's gotten the hint that this is not the Steelers' dream. Is y'all getting Najee Harris? I have no idea, sir. And Jamie Komet also with a compliment there on bringing the post-game shows to you. Sorry I didn't get a chance to talk to you on Tuesday night. Scheduling got in the way. But even tonight without a guest, love to talk to you about the Pens. And give me your thoughts on tonight's game, on a future potential playoff matchup with the Capitals. Maybe not necessarily in the first round, as the Pens and the Caps have the edge on having home ice and hosting a series in the first round, not against each other. Right now, if the season ended today, that old phrase, we would see the Penguins host the Islanders and the Capitals host the Bruins in the first round. But if it comes down to the Penguins and the Capitals, these games have been close. The Penguins have now won 5 out of the 7. This one in overtime, of course, so put an asterisk next to that. But the Capitals have won a couple by wide margins, and if you look at the granular data, you know I like to do that. Look at the shot attempts for and against in the season series. Look at the scoring chances for and against. It's almost dead even at 5-on-5. Even though counting tonight, the Penguins were outchanced. Well, midway through the third period, they were getting outchanced by about 10, according to Natural Stat Trick. Ended up being 23 scoring chances for the Capitals and 15 for the Penguins, 11-5 in favor of the Capitals at high danger. Total shots, though, the Penguins had a slight edge, 53-50. So that's pretty emblematic of the season series, where these two teams have had it decided on a knife's edge in a lot of cases. Tonight, a great example of that. I do like the thought of the Penguins and their speed, especially if they get Brandon Tanev back, being able to get around the Capitals, who are still more of a heavy team, if you will, than a speed team at this stage of the game and at this time in the Ovechkin Backstrom era in Washington. Of course, they've changed coaches a couple of times. And, stylistically, when they won the Stanley Cup in 2018, it wasn't a run-and-gun style, certainly, that got it done for them. But at the same time, they still have some offensive firepower, and I love the addition of Mantha for them. I think that's a great deal, even though maybe Steve Yzerman gets the better of that trade in the long run. And Jakub Vrana has been very good for Detroit in the short term since the trade deadline. But bigger picture perspective here on Penguins and Capitals this season, it's closer than you think, despite the Penguins having the edge in wins and total points gained in the standings. But there is one thing that I worry about if I were a Capitals fan, and that's the idea that you're looking like you're going to be starting a goalie that none of us ever heard of prior to January, and Vitek Vanacek. And I think he's gotten better. I think he's risen to the level of competition. He looked like a minor league goalie, to put it bluntly, in the first couple of matchups between the Pens and the Caps this season. But Vanacek still giving up some suspect goals, not looking like he's on his angle a lot, seems to lose the net. An aggressive goalie, which I like, but you can be too aggressive, as those of us who watch Marc-Andre Fleury struggle to find that balance for, 10, 12 years in Pittsburgh can attest to. Vanacek appears to struggle with that at times, and I guess we'll see about Samsonov. Maybe he gets a chance to prove himself late here in the regular season for the Capitals. We know Henrik Lundqvist isn't coming back. He got on the practice ice for the Caps, but had a little bit of a setback with the heart muscle with the surgery that he had. So it appears that he's not going to make an appearance for the Capitals. Remember, that was going to be the plan, right? It was going to be Lundqvist with perhaps Samsonov and maybe Vanacek getting a couple of starts here or there. But it's been Vanacek's net due to injuries and illness. And I believe Samsonov had COVID, in fact. So he's taken a while to get back. And right now the Caps appear to be going with the rookie. And I think if Caps fans, most Caps fans were being honest, they never heard of Vitek Vanacek coming into this year. Not that it can't pan out. We saw it with Matt Murray. We've seen it with Jordan Binnington, too, in recent vintage in the NHL. But at the same time, I think if you look at the goaltending matchup, even though Tristan Jarry has exactly one playoff game to his credit, and that was just this past summer in the qualification round against Montreal, I still love his upside more so than Vanacek, who's basically a non-prospect. He's a guy who's just a guy. Even Casey DeSmith, I would like him in a goalie matchup against Vanacek. So that's the one part. If you talk about a series that's been close, if you look at all the metrics, really, it's been pretty close. Then obviously you look at goaltending, right? Because that can make a difference in a short best-of-7 series. It just takes a couple of soft goals here and there to doom you as a team. And if I had to guess on which side might allow the soft goal if the Penguins and Capitals meet in the playoffs, I would go with Vanacek. Not that Jarry's been perfect, not that DeSmith is certainly a great goalie at this point, but they've both been better than him over the course of this season. But then again, the Capitals are right there tied with the Penguins on 69 points with just a handful of games left in this regular season. This is Pittsburgh Postgame. We're talking Pens, Caps, and also some bigger picture stuff regarding the Pens. If I don't get any more comments here in the next couple of minutes, we'll just wrap it up and say goodnight and leave it for the archive version. Looking ahead for the Pens, it's going to be interesting because they have this one last matchup against a playoff team in the Capitals. The Caps clinched, by the way, too. So we'll see them once again in the battle for Lord Stanley. The rematch coming up on Saturday night in Washington at Capital One Arena. And then it's 2 against the Flyers in Philly Monday and Tuesday. The Flyers aren't making it, despite, I think, still being mathematically alive for the 4th and final spot in the East. But the Rangers are even closer than them at this point. That tells you all you need to know. The Flyers will be probably playing footloose and fancy free. I'm not sure what the Penguins are going to be in terms of getting guys back. Could Malkin be back? Possibly for that series in Philly. And then it'll be Buffalo to finish the season at home. So you could say a 4-game run-up to the playoffs, a chance to try some things, a chance to not necessarily tax the stars, tax the big boys like your Crosbys and your Letangs and your Guentzels and your Russ and perhaps spread the ice time around a little bit more if you're Mike Sullivan in the final 4 games, but not so close to now. We still have to talk about Saturday, and that's still a very important game in the big context of things. I know everyone is a threat to win the East Division. This isn't like the Central, for instance, where you really want to get that top spot because the 4th team in isn't going to be any great shakes. They're not going to be a team that's a serious threat. I realize you get in, it's hockey. Lucky things can happen. Strange things can happen. But the East is probably the deepest division, 1 through 4, in the NHL right now. A lot of these 1 seeds are going to have a significantly easier matchup than the 1 seed is going to have in the East. But I still would like to see the Penguins get home ice, at least in the first round. And I think it's worth fighting for. I think it's worth playing hard for, not to necessarily raise a division championship banner, but to at least give yourself an opportunity to play at home, despite the fact there are limited fans in the stands here. Let me check my game notes to see if I have anything else for you. I mentioned Mantha. Oh, also, Sidney Crosby, I wouldn't say he had his best game of the season, but that awareness was certainly at 100% in the 3rd period. Garnet Hathaway of the Capitals took a run at Sid, and the Crosby line, again, seemed to be not getting the benefit of the doubt from the officials in this game. We saw that against Boston a little bit over the weekend, and especially that game on Sunday, the 1-0 win for the Pens when there was just 1 penalty called the entire game against both teams. And then we saw it again tonight, especially one particular shift in the 2nd period. Guentzel thought he was held. Sid was pleading his case to the referees tonight. And then in the 3rd, Garnet Hathaway takes a run at Sid and tries to take his head off, to put it bluntly. And Sid saw at the last moment, ducked out of the way, didn't commit to holding onto the puck there and completing the zone entry. And I think for good reason. If you looked at how that hit was tracking to be, it was looking to be a severe one. And Sid and Hathaway were chirping at each other across the way on the benches after that shift. They were definitely talking about what just went on, and that could have some carryover into Saturday. We didn't see a lot of fireworks in this game, but that's part of the reason why I love these back-to-backs this season, because you do get a chance to build off of the previous game, and well, especially a game against a team like the Capitals that the Penguins have been battling with for 15, 16 years. Like I mentioned, that's how long Crosby and Ovechkin have been going head-to-head, but not tonight. For once, the matchup doesn't happen, and it's not because of Sid being out. It's because of Alexander Ovechkin being on the shelf. So a little strange for sure, and it led to a different feel for this one. But in the end, the Penguins continue their trend against the Capitals this season, getting points more often than not, despite, like I said, that late defensive blunder, the 6-on-5 goal from Tom Wilson. Chris Letang, not his finest last couple of minutes. I'll give him some leeway on missing the empty net from, 150 feet away. You're not always going to nail it there. And at least he went for it, unlike Brian Rust, like I was talking about before. But his primary job in that late stage is to protect the front of the net, and he couldn't do it. So, again, a high leverage point given up, but the Penguins get 2 of their own. They are back in the playoffs, 15 straight years. Congratulations to them, to the entire organization. I don't care how many superstars you have. This is not a sport like basketball where the superstar controls the action. This is not a sport like football where a big-time QB can almost guarantee a playoff berth just by rolling out the footballs at the start of the season. It's a different kind of game, hockey. And you can have injuries, as we've seen here in Pittsburgh. You can have bad luck. You've seen even perennial contenders like the Bruins and the Capitals miss the playoffs over the years once in a while. The Penguins have not done it since Crosby's rookie year and that disaster season coming out of the full season lockout. Since 06-07, they've been there every time. And that's part of the reason why they have 3 cups over that span, because they continue to give themselves chances. They keep knocking at the door, and they're going to be one of the loudest knockers, I think, coming up in May once the playoffs get going. Thanks so much for watching Pittsburgh Postgame. We have a Capitals fan, actually, joining us, too. Ainsley Kaplan says, "Let's go Capitals. They clinched." Yes, we're aware, and I do give the Caps credit, despite playing a goalie that was not on anybody's radar coming into the season. He has played a ton, has Vanacek, but the Caps have still kept it going. And as I said, I like the acquisition of Mantha. And even though Chara's not playing 1,000 minutes anymore on a nightly basis, he still makes a difference. He even broke up a chance for a tap-in goal from Jason Zucker That comes to mind right now as I think about it. That long reach, that long stick is still getting in the way and causing havoc. So any playoff matchup in the Eastern Division would be fun and interesting. Pens and Caps always that way too. But again, with a slight twist, with some roster changes on both sides, you'd still have that same fire, I think. And tonight was a good preview of that as we saw the intensity ramp up in the third period. Again, thank you for watching. This is Pittsburgh Postgame on Pittsburgh Sports Live. Like and subscribe, and also sign up for the notifications. Hit that little bell button under the screen if you're watching on YouTube right now. That's how you know whenever we go live. We have 2 live streams going right now concurrently with the NFL Draft first round going on, and the Steelers waiting deep into the night here for their pick near the end of the first round. Mike Osti, Alan Saunders, and Nick Farabaugh are talking about that over on the other stream. So if you want to take a look at that, take a gander and see what the Steelers do and sound off on what you think they should do or should have done after the pick has been made, please feel free to do that. Plenty more hockey content, though, coming up here on the channel, including Saturday, looking at doing another post-game show. It's 7 o'clock start, and it'll be the final matchup of the regular season against a playoff team for the Penguins. So one last test before we really get this thing going for real in a couple of weeks. This has been Matt Gajtka. Find me on Twitter at Matt Gajtka, MattGajtka. My name is spelled right at the bottom of the screen. I appreciate you. God bless. Have a great night. We'll talk to you next time.